Aloha class, thank you for joining me for this YouTube video of 2x2 multiplication strategies. When I say 2x2, I mean 2 digits multiplied by 2 digits. So we're going to be only working with 2-digit multiplication. So I wanted to show you a few different strategies that I've shown you in class, but I wanted to put them in a video. So if you can review them over Christmas break, that way it stays fresh in your brain. So I'm going to do the first strategy that we learned about on Accelerate Ed, and they call it clustering. Okay, so clustering is when we kind of group things together, like ahui manu, like the cluster of birds. We put them together, and we're going to multiply them, and then we're going to add our answers together. So this is the traditional clustering method, and they don't really do it in the same order that I would do it, but I'm going to show you how they come up with their answer. So my problem that I'm going to be using for this YouTube video is 15 times 12. So 15 times 12. So when they look at this, they just list their clusters. So they say, okay, well, I'm going to do 10 times 10. And then I'm going to do 5 times 2. And then they're going to do 2 times 10 and 10 times 5. So you see how easy it was for me to get mixed up. I don't really like this way because it's not really it's not in logical order that I would like. But if this is how you do it, then and you get the right answer, then that's great. 10 times 10 is 100, 5 times 2 is 10, 2 times 10 is 20, and 10 times 5 is 50. Notice that my place values are lined up from the ones, and then the tens, and then the hundreds. If I line it up incorrectly, I'm definitely going to get the wrong answer. So 0, 8, 1, and that's my answer. I circle it. Okay, then I want to check to see if it's reasonable. You can look at the problem, and then you can estimate by using rounding. So if I was going to check to see if it's reasonable, I'm going to round my numbers. I'm going to round them to the nearest 10. So I'm going to say it's 20 times 10 because I rounded the 15 up to 20, and then the 1 stays the same because the 2 is below 5, so I rounded to 10. So 20 times 10 is 2 times 1, 2. 2 zeros are annexed. 200. And that's pretty reasonable. Okay, so I'm going to put a check mark. Yep, that looks good. Now I use the word annex because this is going to be a part of our social studies vocabulary. Annex means to take over, right? So I'm going to take over these 2 zeros in my answer. I don't want to say add the zeros because you guys know that when you add 0 to a number, it doesn't change the number because 0 has no value. So I'm going to use the word annex in this YouTube video just to help you guys understand that we're taking over those zeros and we're putting them in our answer. Okay? So this was the first clustering example that we had in our online curriculum. And now I'm going to show you the next method that they showed us. Okay? And this one is more of an organized clustering method, and I call it linear clustering, but it has different names, but that's how I do it in my brain. So for this one, we're going to do the same thing that we did over here, but it's going to be in a more organized way. So I'm going to write out my equation up and down, 15 times 12, okay? So I start by going up, and then I'm going to go diagonal. This one is going to go diagonal, and then up. I'm making sure that the bottom numbers are multiplying both of these numbers on top, so it's organized. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 10, because this 1 is in the 10 spot. 2 times 1 is 2, annex a 0, so it's 20. Cross out my 2 because I'm done with it. I multiplied it by 5 to get 10. I multiplied the 2 times 1 to get 20. And remember, this 1 represents a 10. So now I'm going to take this 10 and multiply it by 5. 10 times 5 is 50. And 10 times 10 is 100. And now I add it together. 0, 8, 180. You'll notice that my answers are the same. Okay, and I already rounded to see if this is reasonable, so I'm going to put check mark. I'm good to go. So let me show you the other strategy, and this is the one that I grew up doing, and this is the one that I still use now. Again, you don't have to do it. You can use whatever strategy you are comfortable with as long as you get the right answer. Okay, so mine is set up just like before, and this one is called regroup. Okay, I'm using regrouping. Okay, so I'm going to start off just like this one. I multiplied the 2 by 5. I'm going to do it over here. 2 by 5 equals 10. Now I'm going to regroup the 1 in the tens position. So I put a 0 here. 2 times 5 is 10. I put my 1 up here, and I'm going to add it in later. So 2 times 5 equals 10. I put my 1 representing the 10 and the 0 because I have no 1s. And now I do 2 times this 10, but really I can just think of it as 2 times 1, and then I add this 1 after. So 2 times 1 equals 2. Add the 1, and I get 3. Okay? So 2 times 5 was 10. Now 2 times this one is 2. Add the 1 to get 3. I didn't have to annex anything because it's set up nicely that I don't have to really worry about those zeros. Now the time that I do need to worry about the zeros is when I go to do the second digit. So I cross out my 2. Because this 1 is in the tens place and it's not in the ones place, I need to put a place value holder. So I'm going to put a 0 in the ones place because this is in the tens place and I need to hold that ones place value. Okay, and now I can multiply it out. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 1 is 1. And I've already used that one, so really I could cross that one out. I don't add it in again. So I did a 0 holding the place value because I crossed out the 2. And then I did 1 times 5 equals 5. And 1 times 1 equals 1. All right, I'm ready to add it together. And you'll notice, again, it's the same answer. So really, if you think of this method, I'm doing these 2 steps in 1 step, and I'm doing these 2 steps in 1 step. By regrouping, it allows me to do it a little bit quicker. Now, if this was confusing to you, then maybe you need to stick with this method for now. I'm going to show you one more way that you can find the answer. Okay. So this one is called the area model, or you might have heard me say Singapore math. Okay? On our online curriculum, it is considered area model because you're multiplying the sides of an object to find the area. An area uses multiplication. Okay, so if I wanted to, with the problem 15 times 12, I could measure out inches. I could do 15 inches down and 12 inches across, and then I could draw my lines and I could count the individual squares in the box. But instead of doing that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just use the pull apart method with these numbers. So I'm going to do a box, and we're going to pretend like this is our area inside. And I'm going to say, okay, well, 15, so it's 10 and 5. Right? Because I can pull apart 10 and 5. These numbers are easier to work with than just 15. I can say 10 is easy to work with and 5 is easier to work with. So I'm going to draw my line across. Now for 12, what do you think I'm going to pull it apart to? It's going to be 10 and 2. Okay? So 10 and 2. So now I can multiply first going across and up, and then I'll use that in each of these squares. It doesn't really matter where you start, but I like to start right here so I don't get confused. 10 times 10, 100. Write that in your box. 10 times 2, 20. Write that in your box. 5 times 10 equals 50. 5 times 2 equals 10. I use the numbers outside of the box to find the areas of these smaller squares or rectangles. I don't multiply anything inside the box. That would be very confusing and I would get the wrong answer. I only multiply the numbers outside because they're a part of my original problem. Now I can add my answers together. 100 plus 20 is 120. 50 plus 10 is 60. When I add that, I get 180. And there you are. I have different strategies to get the same answer when I'm multiplying 2-digit by 2-digit. Okay? So you guys use the one that makes the most sense to you and the one that's going to get you to the correct answer. I did want to show you how to use area model for a 2-by-1 question just in case that comes up in your homework. So if I had the numbers 12 times 8, and you guys should know this because it's a multiplication fact that you should have learned in 3rd grade and 1st quarter of 4th grade. But if you forget, you can use area model to help you. So I'm going to pull apart the 10 and the 2 for the 12. I'm going to pull apart the 12 to make 10 and 2. And then I'm just going to have an 8 up here. So it's going to look like this. 10 times 8 is 80. 2 times 8 is 16. If I add it together, I get 96. Okay? And you can also do this mentally. 8 times 10 is 80. 8 times 2 is 16. 80 plus 16 is 96. But that's just for you if you get confused or if you can't remember your multiplication facts. You can definitely use the area model to help you remember those things. Okay? Well, I hope this helps you, and I hope you guys have a good Christmas break, and I hope you get a chance to do a little bit of math. And if you have questions, you can definitely email me over Christmas break. It might take a couple of days for me to respond, but I will respond. Thank you guys so much.